if we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land, we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Patriot Show. I'm your host, Anthony Stephen Malone. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special guest who we're going to speak to today and interview. Her name is Busse. She is a movement coach, 180 Firearms Training, and she is a veteran as well. This is a very interesting interview for all my military friends out there and people in law enforcement as well. Hello, Katie, how are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for coming on to the show as well. Now, obviously,
my pleasure.
Quite a few of us are aware of you and the work that you do and the training that you do as a movement coach as well. For the viewers who don't know much about you, can you say a little bit about your background, please?
Sure. So I started researching movement for the shooting sports in 2010. There really wasn't any research out there at that time, so I had to take it from other sports and figure out what applied to the shooting sports and what didn't matter either way. So I took my theories, tested them on the top shooters in the world until I figured out what did work. And then I wrote a book on it, Smart Move, Economy of Motion for the Shooting Sports. So now I travel all over the world, well, except during COVID, but normally I travel all over the world teaching movement classes. And two of my students from South Africa just shot nationals over the weekend, and they both finished top 3.
Excellent. So you're not just very good at what you do, you are coaching some of the best shooters in the world, which is
yes.
which is a hell of an accomplishment as well. Can you explain to my viewers a little bit about how you coach as well?
So this is a little odd in that, well, in most sports around the world, there are coaches, and those coaches aren't necessarily top athletes in their game. They're coaching, they study coaching. Like, for example, Tiger Woods has a coach. His coach is no Tiger Woods. Well, I brought the same thing to the shooting sports, which has never been done before. So I brought coaching to the shooting sports before I was ever a shooter, just watching how they move and giving feedback on the movement based on the research. And my background is, well, I have a degree in science and I study the human body and how it moves and was able to apply that to shooting. And nobody had ever done that before. So even though I wasn't a top shooter, I'm still not a top shooter. I'm one of the top coaches in the world, and I coach the top shooters in the world.
Yeah, it's because you've come from not really a full military career law enforcement background, and you've come in, which you think out of the box. You've brought something very new, not just to the sport, the shooting sport, but for anybody who does shooting as a job, or they need to do shooting as a job as well. What elements in your mind, what elements have you brought with your movement coach, which people haven't done in the past?
So the very first thing that I ever disproved was a commonly accepted notion that as you enter in a position, during position entry, you pop up because that helps you decelerate. So that used to be commonly accepted. This is the way it's always been done. But coming from the outside, I took a look at that and said, they're adding 1/10 of a second to every single position, because you come in low and then you stand up, then you have to move again. The first thing you do is get down low to move again. So you're popping up, popping down again. And that's 1/10 of a second. Plus you're adding shooting on the move difficulty, but you're not going anywhere. So as you're popping up in position, your sights are rising. So either you have to shoot with shooting on the move difficulty as your sights are rising and take those hits, or you have to wait until you've completely stood up before you can take your shots. So either way, you're either adding more shot difficulty or you're delaying the time that you start shooting. And it comes out to about 1/10 of a second per position. And that was the very first thing that I disproved in 2010 and said, keep the distance from the ground to your shoulders the same from the beep until the last shot. And not just in shooting competition, but any shooting, just stay down low. It's going to be a lot easier to move around, and you're going to shock absorb your sights with your legs. So you actually become more accurate by moving more efficiently.
Well, this isn't just what you're saying. You've actually tried and tested this with world champions.
I've proven it.
You've proven it. So it's a fact now. This isn't just something you're saying. You've done it, got the t-shirt, it works. I've already spoken to a lot of my colleagues in America, and you come very highly recommended to speak to about this as well, because they were all stuck in one tunnel way of thinking. And you kind of opened up a lot of other things there, which some of these guys have been shooting for 30 or 40 years or even more. And they thought, you know something, this is unusual. They had a look at it and went, it works. I mean, so you brought something new to the table. When you're on about the movement, this isn't just for pistols, is it? It can be for shotguns, Armallites, any weapon. So the movement you're talking about isn't only for one sort of shooting. It can be for anybody who's using firearms.
Right. And I haven't published this yet. It's coming, but I have actually done the research on movement with long guns as well. I do touch on that a little bit in my book, Smart Move, Economy of Motion for the Shooting Sports. I had a couple of the top long gun shooters make contributions, like Scott Green, Josh Freilich, and Tim Yackley was another one. but I'm going to write an addendum to add to Smart Move for movement with long guns, where I have drills like moving around obstacles and how to maneuver efficiently with the gun, whether you have multiple optics on there to tip it and look through another optic, or if it's better to lean and look through the main optic, and which one is easier to get out of position for. I do have another drill that I teach in my classes where I have them open a door and stand with the door open right in front of it. So you're looking at the skinny side of the door, and then you have your long gun here, you're shooting on the left, pull it back and push it back out again to shoot on the right, pull it back, push it back out again to shoot on the left. So you're practicing maneuvering around that obstacle as though you can't back up away from it. You have to maneuver the gun around it.
Right. So you're bringing in you're not the normal coach, if I can use that particular word. You're bringing something very new ideas that are now tried and tested, and they work as well.
Yes.
The long guns is going to be very interesting because of the sighting systems and everything else involved with them as well. But obviously we will look forward to that in the near future. But to take a step back, a lot of the work that you're doing at the moment is on shots, on pistols.
Yes. Well, now it's gotten to the point where in my classes, I'm equally doing pistols, and now we have PCC in USPSA.
Yeah.
And they have it in IPSC as well. So working a lot with PCC, pistol caliber carbine. So it's a rifle that shoots pistol ammunition, 9mm. So I do a lot of movement with those as well as with the handguns.
Yeah. A lot of the firearms laws in England are a bit different to what we've got in the United States.
Yes.
Over in America, it's easy to shoot. Shooting's a sport. We do a lot of it over there as well. But in England, it's a very strict. People cannot just go to a range or own a firearm. So it's not readily available. So the technology and a lot of the weaponry open to the public in America is not open to hardly anybody in England. England's more, I think the civilian population do a lot of shotgun shooting here as well. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other shooting. There's a lot of other different weapons and ranges. I just want to make a point of that the UK is not the same as the United States when it comes to gun laws. Some people will argue about that. This interview is not about that. I enjoy shooting. I've got someone on the show who enjoys it as well. So we're not going to get into the politics about any of that at all. Right. What some of my viewers who I've actually spoken to before I've done the interview as well, what pistols and weapons do you personally like to shoot?
Right now I'm shooting the CZ Shadow 2 Orange. Previously I was shooting the Tanfoglio Stock 2. That's an Italian gun. So I went from Italian to Czech.
Okay.
But I'm really enjoying the CZ.
Why you ended up going back to the ZZs?
I like the Tanfoglio, but it is a challenge to keep them running. The machining is a little bit different on all of them. They don't have the standards in Italy that they do in the Czech Republic for when they build a firearm.
Yeah.
In fact, when I received my Tanfoglio, which is a 9mm, the extractor was a 40. And I couldn't figure out why this brand new gun wasn't extracting. I had to actually take a calipers and measure it before I realized they put a 40 extractor in there. It was just laying on the table. Oh, this looks about right. I'll stick that in there.
Obviously someone who didn't realize what they were doing at the time.
So it's just they're kind of a pain to keep running, but once you get them running, they're really nice.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned there that your one of the pistols you enjoy to shoot is 9mm. What other calibers do you shoot as well?
Well, I shoot everything. I've shot 40. I did that for about a year, but it started pinging my elbows a little bit.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard on the elbows to shoot 40 because it's not like a 45 where you have the mass of the gun to compensate for it. It does take a toll on your joints. So
Yeah,
after about a year, I said, okay, that's enough of that. Went back to 9.
Did you find it a lot? This is on a personal level. Do you find it a lot easier when you went from 9 to 40 back to 9 again? Did you find it a lot easier to go back to a 9 after all that?
Yeah, going back to 9 is much easier,
Yeah.
but you don't get as many points.
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk calibers all day and weapon specs, but I just wanted to take a step back on this one. Your coaching and your coaching style and the way that you coach as well. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into that, please?
It is very individualized. My classes are limited to 8 students because we're moving around with the guns. It's not like we can all stand in a line on a firing range and shoot at the same time. We can only have one person running the gun at a time because we're moving in all different directions and we can't be pointing our guns at each other. So I limit it to 8 students just because of the movement and because I like to keep it very individualized. Everyone's body is built a little bit differently. So the way you move efficiently is not going to be the same as the way someone else moves efficiently. Everyone's body is very different. If I have a 400-pound guy in my class, I'm going to tell him something completely different than I'm going to tell you. Or if I've got a guy with a prosthetic or in a wheelchair, it's very individualized.
I was going to ask about that. You because you come from a healthcare kind of background as well. You help a lot of people who have had injuries to be able to shoot as well. That is so important. So thank you for that. Anyway, can you speak a little bit about all of that as well?
Well, I have had people in my classes who were told they would never be able to run again. But one of the things I did as a nurse was help people learn how to move their bodies again after injuries and surgeries. So these people who were told they would never run again have learned how to run under my instruction, which is extremely gratifying, very exciting. And people in wheelchairs, I have them combine positions differently because every time they stop and start, they have to holster their gun in order to move the chair. So one of the things that I found is doing a 50-50 reload takes off about 8 seconds per stage, sometimes more, depending how long the stage is. So they shoot, drop the mag, grab the next one like a tack reload, so it's sticking up like this through their fingers. That gives them enough fingers that they can actually grab the chair and move it. So they drop the mag, grab the next one like a tack reload, holster, move the chair to the next position, and now the reload is halfway done already. So now they take out the gun, seat the magazine, and shoot.
It's something as simple as that. It makes all the difference.
8 seconds on a 24-round field course.
Yeah, that makes a massive impact. That it also, from a person who's been injured or is in the chair, it makes them feel as if they can compete with anyone else out there as well. It
closes the gap.
Yeah,
it really does close the gap. There's this huge margin between, the last able-bodied shooter down to the first adaptive shooter. There's this big margin, and this margin is getting smaller and smaller as we're figuring things out. And a lot of times I'll let them take my class for free because I learn from them just as much as they learn from me. So I'm using them like my guinea pigs to figure out what works and what doesn't, and using them for research to help them improve. So if I can watch them shoot a stage, I can find their low-hanging fruit and we can close that gap.
Yeah, no, that is excellent. There isn't any other way to describe that. Your book that you've written, Smart Move, where can people find this? Where can they buy this?
If you would like a personalized copy, you can email me 180firearmstraining@gmail.com. I'll sign one and send it to you.
Okay. The link to your book as well, while everyone's watching, will be underneath the interview as well. So I would recommend this. Go and have a look at it. It's interesting, not what you're expecting. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you're never too old to actually learn. So a lot of people who do a lot of shooting, a lot of people I personally know who I shoot with now. This is an unusual entity, and you can learn a lot as well. Remember, you're never too old to actually learn something new. Okay. So what are your plans then? You've done an awful lot in a very short space of time with the movement and everything. What are your plans for the future?
I have nationals, production nationals are coming up in, I don't know, a month and a half or so in Florida. Last year, I was lucky enough to take top 5 ladies, so hoping to do something similar again this year. I'm shooting the TAL this weekend, actually, in Texas.
Right.
So this is something I'm doing to bring more women into the shooting sports, get more women with guns in their hands. So I'm doing an intro class. I'm only charging enough to cover my flight to get there, and doing a ladies intro class, teaching them this is how you hold a gun, this is how you stand, this is what all the buttons do, this is how you pull the trigger. And if you want to pick out a firearm for concealed carry or for competition, these are the things you need to look at when you do that to help you make your decision. And then I'm shooting their first competition with them, which is IDPA, which I've actually never shot before.
Okay.
I shoot USPSA, but you know, there are enough similarities. I think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
But we're shooting their first match together. And then the day after the match, I'm doing a little mini seminar where I just go over the classroom portions of my movement class for people who can't afford ammunition right now, because it's so hard to come by right now with the ammo shortage.
Right.
So it's just the classroom portion, and we might move around a little bit, but there's no actual shooting, and it's only 3 hours long.
When do you think the ammo shortage or the stockpiles are going to start to be replenished?
I am seeing a little bit of an uptick,
Right.
but the pipeline still isn't filled yet. They're just, first they have to meet the government contracts.
Yeah.
And I would anticipate it'll probably be another year or so before they fill the pipeline to have it available to the public, the general public.
Right. Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people who I actually know, and it's, yeah, they're not overly happy that they can't just go down the range, shoot all day. They've got to actually pick what they want to shoot and how much ammo they've got. So hopefully within a year or so, all the stockpiles will be up to scratch again, like they were about a year and a half ago. You mentioned something which I found very interesting. What percentages? You've got a lot of men that shoot in America. How many women is there that actually shoot?
Well, off the top of my head, I can't give you a percentage, but I can tell you it's very male dominated, and there are not a whole lot of women.
I'm surprised
So
at that, because the circle that I shoot in out there, there's quite a few women involved with that as well. I didn't realize on the bigger picture that it's not on like an equal keel.
Oh, it's not equal at all.
Okay.
It's very few women, but we've gotten a lot of new gun owners in the last year since 2020 happened. A lot of people are going out and buying a gun for the first time.
Okay.
So that makes it a lot harder to get guns at a reasonable price, and also to get ammunition, because now we have all these new gun owners.
Yeah.
So it's in high demand.
Yeah. The obviously this is one thing I am going to cover very briefly. All of your movement, all of your coaching, I obviously know that you do safety. Safety is paramount at any time. I just want to make a point of that, because over in the UK, I don't want people to think that this is not organized. This is hyper organized, hyper professional, and you know exactly what you're doing. And gun safety is a massive part of everything. Can you speak very briefly about that?
So typically the class that I teach is very advanced, high level. So the people who take my class are already very safe. It's something that we really don't even need to discuss because they're already high level shooters. When I do an intro class, like the one I'm doing this weekend, I very rarely do it. And if I do, I'm usually donating my time to bring more people into the sports. But then of course, we're talking about the 4 basic range rules, finger off the trigger, always treat a gun as if it's loaded, know your target, what is beyond it, and so forth. So obviously we go through all those things.
I just wanted to bring that up because in England, somebody somewhere will actually ask, how can you move so quickly? And obviously, is that impacting on any of the safety issues? The fact of the matter is, it's actually not. If you're a professional shooter, law enforcement, military or civilian, and you've got that experience, the safety element of it is always there. You never allow anyone onto a range anyway who doesn't know what they're doing. But your coaching, nearly all of it is aimed at the high end anyway. So the people who train are hyper
aware of safety. Yeah, it's intuitive at that point.
At this point, the guys, maybe some of the guys from a specialist background, the guys know what they're doing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to make that point there because our laws in England, and there's going to be someone saying, well, are they experienced? The answer is yes, they actually are. Right, the other thing, your book isn't just in English either. It's in Portuguese, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It is.
Are you planning on doing it in a lot of other languages, are you?
There has been talk about translating it to Russian.
Yeah.
And Spanish. So possibly.
I just thought I would ask. You weren't expecting that. No, I think it's important because you're bringing something new to the shooting community. So I think, yeah, if it can be done in different languages, I think a lot of people will get a lot of benefit out of that as well. On a personal note, you obviously do a lot of shooting. Where is your favorite place to shoot as well?
I really enjoy shooting in the Philippines.
Right.
Because they take really good care of us. We all get a caddy who loads our magazines for us and carries all our stuff. We get babied.
Okay.
They bring us food and water. It's like having your own personal babysitter while you're shooting. All you have to do is the shooting part. There's no pasting and resetting. They do everything.
Right. That is a bit not how it normally is it? Normally, you get your magazines, you got the bomb yourself. You want something you got to go and get it, haven't you? Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So you like the Philippines. In the future,
it's pretty nice.
I might have to go and check that out. I normally do a lot of my shooting down in South Africa. The ammo is a lot cheaper there. So,
yeah, and the range staff is too.
Yeah, it's a great place to shoot. The way I look at it is anywhere that you can put a couple of rounds down, it's great. I even shot in a shopping mall range in Dubai. Was flying through Dubai, spent a couple of days there, went down a bit of shopping. Turns out there was a firearms range, a pistol range in the shopping centre. I was like, going to have to go and check that out. So yes, it's amazing where you can find these. It's just a shame in the United Kingdom, it's not really opened up to the public because the firearms laws over here are very strict anyway. One of the questions I've been asked as well by one of the guys who knew you were coming on the show, with the pistols that you use, what sighting system do you actually favor?
Sighting system? I use iron sights.
Right.
I have a green fiber optic and I sight in at 18 yards
Okay.
because that's the average distance of the targets for competition.
Competitions. Okay, because quite a lot of the boys in law enforcement and the military, there's a lot of different sighting systems out there, a lot of optics. A lot there is 101 of them. Some of them, it's come on. In the past 10 or 20 years, a lot of the pistols, a lot of the sighting systems have come on such a long way. Are you one of these people who likes the pistol just to be as it is, or do you customize it?
I do. Well, the CZ Shadow 2 Orange is competition ready.
Yeah.
So I think there's a difference between customizing it and having it be competition ready.
Right.
You know, you don't want to have a 12-pound double action trigger. Well, maybe you do, but
hopefully not.
To each his own. But yeah, usually I'll get a trigger job, but I recommend not getting a trigger job until after you have good trigger control. Once you have good trigger control, then I think it's acceptable to get a trigger job. But usually you don't want to have a hairline trigger either, where you just bump it and it goes off. And you want to make sure it's running consistently. So I tend to have a little bit of a heavier trigger just because I want to make sure my gun runs. And I do tend to have a heavier recoil spring just because I want to make sure it's cycling properly. For me, it's more function. It's more about making sure it runs consistently every single time.
I think reliability on competition.
Reliability, yes.
Range. Doing it for sport or doing it as a job, law enforcement and the military, your tool. The weapon is a tool, it's part of a toolbox. You find what you're happy with, what works for you as well. What sort of other, obviously you do your shorts, you're doing the pistols, you're moving on to the longs as well. What sort of movement do you do with the shotguns?
With the shotguns, well, I guess it depends which division you're shooting.
Yeah. Well, unlike overall, because a shotgun has got a lot more recoil. Shotguns, you can get them in all sorts of shapes and sizes. But my viewers in England, a lot of them, because they're not allowed to have any other firearms from a legal standpoint, a lot of them do have shotguns over here as well. I just wanted you to speak a little bit about the shotguns and the kind of shotguns you get to shoot on the ranges over there.
I've shot the Beretta 1301. I find that you have to have it really tight in your shoulder and really tight on your cheek. And you have to have more of a forward weight bias, especially for me having such a small frame, it pushes me back. So I have to lean into it. I do a lot of shooting on the shift with a shotgun. There are some targets you can shoot while shooting on the move, picking up and down your feet, but then you'll come across one that's just a little bit too far, where if you're picking up and putting down your feet, you're not going to be able to hit it. So when I get to those ones, I keep my feet where they are and just shift my weight. So my center of gravity never stops moving. My feet just pause wherever they happen to be. And I call that shooting on the shift. It's sort of in between shooting on the move, moving your feet, and shooting standing still. So your center of gravity continues, you hit the target, and then you can go back to shooting on the move, moving your feet for the easier ones. Okay.
It's everything you're bringing to the sport, to the shooting sport. It's you're thinking out of the box and you're doing things that actually work. That's the thing. You're not just saying things that you're thinking about. You've tried it on the ranges, and the advice that you give to shooters as well on their movement makes them quicker, more effective as well, and it works as like an overall, putting it together. It's making a good shooter into an exceptional one, and it's cutting down on the timings as well. Okay, so before I close down the interview, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything else that you would like to say to me viewers as well?
Well, I appreciate you having me on and letting me talk about movement. Definitely check out Smart Move, Economy of Motion for the Shooting Sports. All the information is in there that I've researched. And this is, like you said, it's not just my ideas, it's theories I came up with, but then tested them on some of the top shooters in the world until we figured out what actually works. And that's kind of a moving mark. So you've probably all heard, this is the way it's always been done. I don't do anything the way it's always been done. I take research from other areas that have already been proven in other sports and apply it to the shooting sports until we find what works. And it really is a moving mark, because whatever we think is correct today, just like it used to be, they said, stand up when you come into position because that helps you decelerate. And that was commonly accepted. Well, that was the best thing they knew at the time.
Yeah.
And now that I've found this other way that works better, that doesn't mean that's going to be the end all be all. It could be we find something even better later on down the road. This is something that is always continuing. The research never ends. So
No,
it's sort of a moving target.
Yeah, I think the whole sport is, with you doing all the movement, it's like all the firearms, the weapons. Over time, they always evolve. There's always a better way to do something. There's always a better weapon that's coming out. There's always a better way to actually learn. A lot of us have learned a set way, and everyone thought that was how it has to be. Now, turns out it's actually not. Turns out how we've been trained is not wrong, but they could be quicker ways to actually help improve you. And when you're talking about the movements and that, it works, it helps. The fact that you have trained and helped to train world champions, I don't have to say anything else. Yeah, works. Right, okay. I would like to say thank you so much for my viewers, my friends in the military and my friends in law enforcement over in Europe. They are very interested to read your book anyway. So again, thank you so much. If you can stay on the line for a minute, I'm just going to close down the interview. Okay, everybody, hope you found that interesting, informative, and educational. I recommend the book. The book link will be underneath the actual interview. For all my friends out there who do a lot of shooting, or their job involves being able to actually shoot, check it out. You might actually learn something a bit different on all of this one. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for watching the Patriot Show. Take care and stay safe. Catch you on the next show. Goodbye.
Thank you.